WuSA, wake up South Africa. You've been sleeping far too long. Wake up South Africa. Now come along and sing this song. Wake up South Africa.
Okay, so I want to say thank you to the organizers of the program for giving us an opportunity to share something on this topic, especially because this is something of an epidemic also. The idea of victimhood, the idea of victim mentality. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, there's so many things to be shared on this topic. We're going to give you just a few points, because this could be something that could be done over like a 3 or 4 day or weekly seminar to really do it justice, but we'll just touch upon some key ideas. And we'll also tell you the priogen. In other words, what we're trying to achieve through this particular session. So when I was originally reached out to, the idea was, overcoming victimhood. And then I slightly adjusted the title. I said personal power, overcoming victimhood, because there can be no vacuum in human existence. Let me repeat that. There are no vacuums in human existence. If one wants to be free of a negative, one must replace it with something of a higher, more functional, and more progressive nature. And so therefore, if we're talking about becoming free of this idea of a victim mentality, implicitly, we're talking about accessing our own sense of power, agency, and actually free will. Okay, so we'll say Mangalacharan. I have some slides based upon a model. I may also play you a video, which I think could really help to really bring this to life as we go through the seminar. And it's an honest and heartfelt invitation. My invitation to you is that life is very short. Time is extremely precious. And therefore, we should be in, as my spiritual master would speak about this, he talked about the importance of emergency consciousness. Emergency consciousness really reflects the point that Prabhupada would often make about the value of even a single moment. So when my meditation comes in this direction, I think, okay, if I'm in emergency consciousness, then I understand that life and time is very precious. If I understand that life and time is very precious, it means it should not be wasted. And if it should not be wasted, then by inference, it means I should be thinking, how do I make the most of the time that I have? So in this session, I invite you to make notes. And I invite you to go beyond making notes. I invite you to make introspection. That means reflect on what comes, specifically in relationship to the consideration of your heart, your consciousness. Okay, that's my suggestion. The world is in incredible need of role models who own their power and who do not live life considering themselves to be simply victims on the receiving end of the behaviors of other people. My spiritual master spoke about this a lot in different seminars, courses, and he wrote about it in his books as well. So we'll try and touch upon some of those, at least the spirit of that, along with this model that we're going to share. Anyway, I'll say Mangalacharan and then we'll get into it with the time that we have. Okay. So I was wondering, where would we start this journey? And I thought we could actually begin the journey in the Bhagavatam. There's some incredible series of verses that we found to be relevant to this discussion in the 11th canto, Bhagavatam, chapter 23. So what I'm going to do is I'll begin by sharing my screen. And I'll be honest with you. When I was looking at this section of the Bhagavatam, I was a little bit spoiled for choice, because there are a number of very, I'll just go with my heart, delicious verses which related specifically to this kind of conversation that we're about to have. Anyway, I will share my screen and then we will go forward from there. So I'll just check that you can see my screen. Okay, fantastic. And I'm going to go back because this is the verse I decided to go with, but I'm just going to show you the context because you'll see it's even if we go back to verse number 40 in this particular section, you'll see that there's so many wonderful points which are being made here. So I'll just do it like that. So let's do this. So because I'm conscious of our time, I'm not going to read the Sanskrit. I'll go to the translation, but I may read you this series. Okay, so this is about the Avanti Brahmana, and he's being mistreated by other people. Okay, now this is very important. We want to come as a movement to have a deeper understanding of our tradition and a deeper understanding of the wisdom that it gives. You'll find literally every type of human condition present in a principle form through the teachings. And they're instructive if we have the eyes to see. Okay, so in this section, there's a discussion about the Avanti Brahmana. He's been mistreated by other people. And these are some verses which are in the 11th canto. This is 11th canto, chapter 23, text number 40. I'll read it. I may read the series up until maybe 48. Then we'll go from there. So for this, again, in that consciousness that time is very short, I really want you to tune in without prejudice. What do I mean by that? We have a prejudice in our movement towards the Shastra because we hear it so much. When you hear something so much, Prabhupada says familiarity breeds contempt. Another way of putting that is familiarity breeds inattentiveness. So it's very easy to miss the full impact, the full wisdom, and the full lesson of anything we hear or read, because it's Bhagavatam. I hear that every day. 11th canto, I've read that canto. Listen without prejudice. That means bring your conscious awareness to what is being spoken if you want to be empowered. Okay, so let's read this. So Prabhupada writes, the actual translation is, because this is by the disciples of Prabhupada. The Brahmana understood that all his suffering from other living beings, from the higher forces of nature, and from his own body was unavoidable, being allotted to him by providence. Okay, purple. Many cruel persons harassed the Brahmana, and his own body caused him suffering in the form of fever, hunger, thirst, fatigue, etc. The higher forces of nature are those that cause excessive heat, cold, wind, and rain. The Brahmana realized that all his suffering was due to his false identification with his material body and not the interaction of his body with external phenomena. Rather than try to adjust his external situation, he tried to adjust his Krishna consciousness and thus realized his actual identity as an eternal spirit soul. Don't worry if you don't get all of this. I'm going to touch upon the key point here, which is he tried to adjust his Krishna consciousness first. Right? And we'll see why as we go on to the next few verses. So verse number 41. Even while being insulted by these low-class men who are trying to effect his downfall. By the way, does that ever sound familiar? Ever have that happen to you? Someone's trying to bring you down, someone trying to cause you some difficulty? Okay, so we can relate to this. Even while being insulted by these low-class men who were trying to effect his downfall, he remained steady in his spiritual duties. Fixing his resolution in the mode of goodness, he began to chant the following song. Now, the key thing here is the mode. Fixing his resolution in the mode of goodness. Okay, so before that, he remained steady in his spiritual duties and he fixed his resolution in the mode of goodness. So here, the key point is understand mode of goodness relates to steadiness, especially steadiness of mind. Okay, now in Sanskrit, the word for steady is nishta. I've been on this amazing journey over the last few years. What Krishna has revealed very strongly is the coherence of the scripture. Okay, that means the scripture, as you read it, you understand that one thing relates to another thing, which relates to something else. And it goes across the span of the entire teaching. This is an example. So when we read Madhurya Kadambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains Nishta. And he says in Nishta, one's devotional service is predominantly in the mode of goodness. So there's an equation which is also being spoken of here. Steadiness means sattva. Okay, let's move on. So this is text number 41. I'm not going to read the purport to 41. I'll go on to 42. The Brahmana said, these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress, neither are the demigods my own body, the planets, my past work or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. This is a tough pill to swallow sometimes. Because in the victim mentality, it's easier to point the finger at everyone else, and people are doing things. Okay, let's be very clear. In victim mentality, I can point the finger to everyone else, and people are doing things. But how I take it deeply, ultimately, according to Vyasadeva, not me, Vyasadeva, this is the understanding. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. That means the way things continue to play out, it's all in here. According to the Bhagavatam. Let's carry on. This is 43. The powerful mind actuates the functions of the material modes from which evolve the different kinds of material activities in the modes of goodness, ignorance, and passion. My model that I want to show you is based upon these modes. So it's saying that the mind creates the functions, the modes which evolve from different kinds of material activities. From the activities in each of these modes, develop the corresponding statuses of life. So your status, how your life plays out, according to the Bhagavatam, is actually depending on the modes. And the modes, how they play out in your mind. Okay? Okay. I'm not going to read the purple. I'm going to go on. So, actually, for brevity of time, I'm going to go to 48 because that's the last one I really wanted to draw your attention to. 48. So, this will be the last verse and we're going to get into it. So, this is 11th canto, chapter 23, text number 48. This is instructive for you and I. Failing to conquer this irrepressible enemy, the mind, whose urges are intolerable and who torments the heart. Bear in mind, the mind we often think of as a seat of thinking. Now it says who torments the heart. The heart is the seat of feeling. So we have cognition and we have emotions, both related to the mind. Okay, failing to conquer this irrepressible enemy, the mind, whose urges are intolerable and who torments the heart. Many people, i.e. us, are completely bewildered and create useless quarrel with others. Thus they conclude that other people are either their friends, their enemies, or parties indifferent to them. Okay, purple. Falsely identifying oneself as the material body and accepting bodily expansions as such as children and grandchildren to be one's eternal property, one completely forgets that every living being is qualitatively one with God. There is no essential difference between one living being and another, since all are eternal expansions of the Supreme Lord. The mind absorbed in false ego creates the material body, and by identification with the body, the conditioned soul is overwhelmed by false pride and ignorance as described here. Okay? Now, I'm going to pause. And what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm going to give you literally a few seconds to do this, I want you just to write down any key takeaways that you had from those verses that I just shared with you before we step on. And we're deliberately building some manana into the session, because it's not enough to hear these points. We have to start to rewire the consciousness. rewire the mind. And the process of hearing it, reflecting on it, and writing about it, when you're writing, you're also rewriting. When you're writing on the page, you're rewriting here in the consciousness. Okay? And I'm going to encourage all of you also in your own time to look again through this series of verses. We started at 11th canto, chapter 23, text number 40, and we've gone through to 48. We skipped a few in between. We've gone through to 48. Okay. Now, I was in my mind, I was still debating the order of the flow of this class. I've just had the realization I'm going to show you a video now. Okay. And this is a video. And again, I want to bring this to life for you. I need to let you know something very serious. If you're able to understand what we're telling you in this particular seminar, right? If you get the point that we're trying to share with you in this actual seminar, it will literally change your life for the better, and it will change your life conclusively. And that's a promise, by the way. At the same time, if you don't get this, right? So point number one, if you get the point that we're trying to bring across in this seminar, it will conclusively and permanently change your life, because it will change the way that you see things. Point number one. Point number two, if you choose not to take this point seriously, or the prayojana, the goal that we're trying to share with you, if you choose not to take it seriously, you will continue to be tortured in your material and spiritual life. That's point number two. Point number three is it's a journey from where we are to where we need to be, okay? It's just like surrender. When people talk about surrender, if we're not deep in the teaching, we think surrender is an event, but surrender is a process or a journey. So moving from victim to personal power is not an event. It is a process or a journey, okay? But you have the power to decide how quickly you move. You have the power to decide if you go on the journey. And if you do, you have the power to decide how fast you move on the journey. But there's also a lakshana. There are symptoms on the journey. As an individual devotee moves from victim mentality to personal power, you increasingly experience certain symptoms in your spiritual life, in your consciousness. One of the principles you experience is an increasing sense of free will, right? An increasing sense that I have agency, right? It's not that everything is happening to me. You also experience an increasing sense of proactivity. So you don't, my spiritual master spoke about this now, and you know, just, I am biased, but I'm just being very honest. I saw in his life, he was very proactive, and he was not like so much of our movement. And he explained what he meant. He said, in our ISKCON movement, we're always putting out fires. Has anyone ever seen that? Right? Something kicks off, some emergency in your own life, in the community, everyone has to kind of, you know, suddenly get stressed out and dive in to fix it. And then another emergency happens later on while you're giving yourself a pat on the back because you put out the previous fire. And he wasn't like that. And what I saw, it was that sense of proactive agency. That instead of putting out fires, he was consciously pioneering something that would create a positive situation so that the fire never came up in the first place. So there are many symptoms when an individual moves from the victim to the personal power paradigm. You'll find yourself being more proactive. You'll also find yourself being more discriminating in a positive way, okay? You won't be this blind ISKCON follower, which we constantly see as we go through this ISKCON world. You'll stop being the blind follower, you'll be the proactive agent. There are many benefits, and you'll see why in a moment. Okay, so I'm gonna show you this video. Again, ladies and gentlemen, our time is precious. I want you to listen carefully to the video I'm about to play you. It's a secular video, right? But to be honest with you, if the vision that Prabhupada gave, Shastrachak Shus, right, is that you're actually meant to be able to learn from everything and everyone. And this is relevant to us. Okay, so I'm going to show you a video. It'll be about 7 minutes long. I want you to watch and listen carefully. And I want you to think about what you're hearing, and then we will go on, okay? And I'm going to make sure I'm going to go against my natural tendency, and I'm going to finish on time for this seminar, okay? But what we will do, we're not going to have Q&A in this 1 hour class. But I spoke to Sabyasachi before, and if people want, I can come back later on today, which will be 2 p.m. UK time. I'm not sure what time that is in South Africa, but then at that point, we can do Q&A. I can make some further comments if people want to join us. If you can't, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to give you the key points in this seminar, in this first hour. Okay, so I'll play the video and then we will go from there.
Want to do a bit of an exercise?
Sure.
Okay, and then, if you don't like it, just tell me. When was the last, this is something I do in my groups or when I speak or in the song, when I teach. So I ask people to tell me some recent episode when they're upset with somebody with their lives. And something that they're open to sharing. So it doesn't have to be anything sordid or thing, but just something, whether it's your spouse, partner, the bus driver, I don't care.
Sure.
A friend.
Okay.
So are you willing to go there?
Anything.
Okay.
I can share anything.
Just where you were upset with somebody.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So what happened?
Describe it.
What happened? Yeah.
All right. There were a number of issues in my home, broken aspects of the home, things that were falling apart or needed to be fixed physically.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And I had hired someone to do these things while I was gone.
Okay.
And I came back and none of them were fixed.
Okay. And your emotional reaction was?
Anger.
Rage. Anger. Okay. Anything else besides anger?
I think they're close cousins. Frustration.
Frustration is anger, yeah.
Yeah. I was disappointed.
Disappointed is sadness.
Yeah, it's a different feeling. So I was disappointed in myself also, because I started to look at how maybe...
Well, disappointed is not so much an emotion as a state of mind. I'm asking what the emotions were. What's inside disappointment? Something didn't happen. I wanted it to happen. How do I feel? Isn't there sadness there?
Sure. Yeah, there's sadness.
I'm not talking into it. I'm just asking.
Well, I suppose I might be confusing state of mind and states of mind and emotions. Yeah. Since I'm not sure how to do it.
So I'm looking at the raw emotion.
Yeah, sadness.
So there's anger and sadness. Those are the emotions.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you a silly question. What were you sad and angry about?
Well, I suppose the answer, which is not the right answer I'm expecting, was I was angry that someone had made commitments to me and not fulfilled those commitments.
Okay, well, that's what happened. They had made the commitment and fulfilled, but that doesn't tell me what you were sad or angry about. What does that mean that they didn't fulfill their commitments?
Meant that they didn't care about me. They didn't that they didn't respect me.
So they didn't care about you and didn't respect you. What kind of person doesn't get cared or respected?
I might need a lifeline here. I don't know. Someone who doesn't deserve to be cared for or respected.
Exactly. Somebody unworthy, right?
Sure.
Of respect and care. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if there are other people here, which there usually are when I do this exercise, I would ask them, okay, we just listened to Tim tell us about this experience. Are there other reasons why this other person might not have done the work that has nothing to do with him or her not caring about him or not respecting him? So what other reasons might there be?
1,000,001.
Name one.
Yeah, he could be in the hospital.
He could be in the hospital.
His partner carried one. Could have been in a car accident.
Exactly.
He had a flight delay and got caught on Puerto Rico during a hurricane.
He's got ADHD.
Yeah.
He can't follow through. He's under stress and he couldn't.
Right.
Okay. Now
the email that I was supposed to send is sitting in drafts, and I thought I'd sent it, but in fact, he never received it.
Okay, and any number of possibilities.
Yeah.
Now, of all the possibilities that you've just outlined, including that they don't care about you or respect you, which is the worst one?
The one I immediately defaulted to.
Right. So
Well, I mean, the worst. I mean, if the guy's dead, then it's bad. But
but internally.
Yeah, internally, the worst assumption
Yeah.
is the one that I immediately made.
Exactly. So let's notice something. I should say we, because we're all like this, we don't respond to what happens. We respond to our perception of what happens.
Right.
Okay. That's what the Buddha said. It's with our minds you create the world. So that if you'd found out he had ADHD or he was stressed, or you might have been sad for him, but you would not have been angry, and you would not have been sad. Okay, you might have, So first of all, we don't respond to what happens. We respond to our perception of what happens, to our interpretation of what happens. Number one. Number two, of all the possible interpretations, we choose the worst one.
Yeah.
Number two. Thirdly, what I just said isn't true. We didn't choose it. It's not like you went through all these possibilities and you said,
it wasn't multiple choice. I chose option D.
Oh no, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't respect me. You didn't do that. Your brain jumped there automatically, right? The question is why?
Yeah.
Now here's the learning. First time in your life that you felt hurt and angry, that when you perceived somebody didn't care about you or didn't respect you, or has it happened before?
This is where the exercise might go sideways. I'm going to hit pause on that. I think that's probably for more of a conversation number one.
But you'd probably agree it's not the first time.
It's not the first time.
Very good. And most people I talk to, it goes back way back.
Yeah, this goes way back.
Into childhood. Okay. And that's what trauma is. We don't respond to the present moment. We respond to the past. Now, but along the lines of our discussion, it's a beautiful learning opportunity. Now you get to know. Now, what if you assumed for a moment that you're the most lovable, most worthy of care, most worthy of respect person in the history of the universe? And this guy doesn't do your home. What's your response?
Any number of the other options, which does not trigger an intense negative emotional state.
Yeah.
None of those other options would trigger that.
So something in you, I would argue, still believes that you're not worthy of care and respect. And that's what gets triggered. So who's the one that doesn't care about you, and who's the one that doesn't think you're worthy of respect?
No, it'd be me.
It'd be you.
Yeah.
So that's a learning.
No, it is.
And this is exactly what you're talking about. You're saying how these difficult things, how these problems are always teaching opportunities. And that's the beauty of healing, is that when you reframe things and you actually see the source within ourselves, all of a sudden that's liberating. Because guess what? If you're feeling that way because this guy did this or didn't do that, that makes you a victim.
Yeah.
But if you see that you're the source, now you're powerful.
Okay. I'm going to give a few seconds. I want that to sink in. When we do our seminars, the whole point, this is not the point of just talking for the sake of talking, or philosophy for the sake of philosophy. We really need to take opportunities to transform and grow. Okay. So what I'm going to start by doing, because it will also help us to digest these points, I'm going to ask everyone to share one thing that they took away that resonated from them in the chat window. Okay. I'd like everyone to type that in. You heard this, it was just over 7 minutes. What particularly resonated or hit you, impacted you from what was seen in the video? Okay. And I love that video because it makes it it brings to life the verses that we just read previously about the source of this feeling that we often have. So I'm going to ask everyone to share that in the chat window. Okay, we don't respond to what's happening, we respond to how we perceive. Thank you, Hetor. We'd like everyone to share something. And then I'll show you some slides and then we will end the session today. Okay, we respond to our past. Radha Vinodini, absolutely. We choose the worst, and that was very interesting, isn't it? And see, that I wanted to show that to you because we all have been there. I know I've been there, where we jump to this negative conclusion. And then actually, if you look at it objectively, there's so many reasons why a certain behavior could be done. So then the question, as was shown in the video, is, okay, there was at least 10 different reasons why that behavior was done. Why did I jump to this one? And this idea of agency is really important. The idea of agency, this is where we spoke about right at the beginning, that actually if there's something that's in us, some wound that's triggered that causes us to immediately jump to this, then actually that's not the bad thing. In fact, that's an incredibly powerful thing. This is where the personal power really comes in. Why is it personal power? Because if it's within me, I can do something about it. And that's the greatest negative issue with the victim mentality, is you lose all your power. The moment you identify yourself as a victim, then you become the prey. You become the person who just receives something from other people. The moment you recognize that the trigger is in me, then you become the powerful. You become the person who's like, I can actually work on this. Now, let's be very clear. It doesn't mean that we don't have natural human emotions when people act in a negative way towards us. But there's a difference between having an initial negative feeling about how someone's behaved and ruminating and holding on to and constantly meditating on and constantly being reliving that incident again and again and again in the mind. I'll tell you honestly, I watched my spiritual master carefully. I'll be really honest with you, because that's just how I'm built. I just want to have honest conversation. I watched my spiritual master carefully for years. Years. And I saw that there were instances where people would act in a way that he didn't like. And it was real. And I saw there was an initial dislike of that behavior. But I also saw he didn't hold on to it. He didn't become bitter. He didn't become resentful. He didn't have this kind of victim mentality. And I saw the reason for that is because at a very, very deep level, he accepted one of the implicit premises of our tradition. We often say, Jivera Supoi Krishnera Nitya Das. And again, we sleepwalk through ISKCON. We say this, say that, say this, say that, and you can easily forget what it really means. What does this really mean? This idea of being part and parcel of Krishna, what's implicit is that Krishna loves himself. You're part and parcel of Krishna, therefore Krishna also loves you, and it's unconditional. So when a devotee is deeply imbibed that, as you saw in the video, in a different way, in the video, what was explained to the person, to Tim, was that, well, if you really believe that you're one of the most lovable, people on the planet, then when someone doesn't act properly towards you, you actually think they've got an issue. It's their issue. But it doesn't disturb you because your sense of your own value is robust. So again, I want us to be very clear. When we talk about the victim mentality, yes, people also behave poorly in life sometimes. But the fact that we get overwhelmed and disturbed by it means that there's still an issue within ourselves. The disturbance is actually within us. The weakness, the wound is within us. And that's the point I wanted to establish first and foremost. Now I'm going to share some slides where we're going to get into this from another perspective. I'm just going to adjust that, so bear with me 1 second. Okay, good. So I'm going to share some slides and we're going to get into this in a little bit more detail for the remainder of the session. So let's see. Okay. So you should be able to see my slides now. Okay, good. So I'm just going to maximize that. So this is a model, and some of you will be familiar with this, but I want to give the context to it because it will help you. So again, throughout the 25 plus years that we've been involved in Krishna consciousness, the journey I've been on has really been one of how to practically apply the philosophy. We have so many world-class models. World-class is even an understatement. They're universal models and principles. What Prabhupada has given and what the acharyas have given in the scriptures are the fundamental building blocks and principles and frameworks by which the entire material energy has been designed. So just like you go into a building, right, you can touch the building, right? You can touch the walls and you can see how everything's, you can see how the room is constituted. That building began as a blueprint. There was a map, a plan of that building written out by some architect, and later on it was built by the builders. The outline, the plan, the architectural drawings, they are the equivalent of the frameworks which are given in the scriptures. So the physical reality that we live in and we negotiate on a day-to-day basis is actually built upon an outline in the mind of Krishna. Various systems, frameworks, principles, structures, and one of them are the modes of material nature, which you can use to understand literally everything. And we therefore applied that same modes of material nature framework to understanding our sense of self in terms of how we value ourselves. So we called this model, and I think some of you are familiar with this. We had a podcast on this. And if you haven't heard the podcast, please do check it out. It's on the Edenova podcast. So we created a model based upon the 3 modes of material nature, but applying the modes to self-esteem. So when self-esteem is in the mode of ignorance, then you get into this others are valuable and I'm not. Okay, how do we know? Because the mode of ignorance has that quality of destructiveness, has that quality of neglect. So when there's low self-esteem, you also see as a symptom certain types of neglect. I may neglect my needs. I may neglect my own understanding, right? So sometimes you, in terms of victim mentality, you sometimes been in a situation where you meet someone and actually you had the sense that there's something wrong here, or this behavior isn't so good, whatever it is, but you don't value your own understanding. Something inside, the super soul inside is saying, this is not a good idea. Or I don't think this person is dealing with you properly. But because of this idea that other people are valuable, I am not, then even though you have a sense in the heart, because the super soul trying to say, don't be friends with this person. They're not treating you properly. Get the hell away, they're envious. But the self-esteem in the mode of ignorance, it dials down what we really understand, and it dials up other people's expectations. So in the modern world, there is an epidemic of low self-esteem. Why? Because in the modern world, there's an epidemic of the lower modes. And this is, unfortunately, we live in a world where people are childish. So they don't understand. If you mess with the lower modes, you mess with your own self-value. You cannot have healthy self-value while living in the modes of ignorance and passion. So low self-esteem, others are valuable, I'm not. Now, mode of goodness, healthy self-esteem, I'm valuable and so is everyone else. Notice how this model works, right? When people have healthy self-esteem, which is self-esteem in the mode of goodness, it also predisposes them towards having healthy relationships. What does it mean to have a healthy relationship? It means I'm considerate of myself and I'm considerate of other people. You understand? And that is how people are able to have a healthy spiritual life as well. I look after my own needs and I respect the space for other people to look after their needs as well. I give, I take, but it's balanced. We know from the Bhagavad Gita, we know from the Bhagavatam, mode of goodness, one of the symptoms of the mode of goodness is balance. You see? And then you have the other end of the spectrum, which is the passion side. In the mode of passion, I'm valuable, but I'm more valuable than everyone else. Okay, now we can equate this. Mode of passion, if I think I'm better than other people, I'm more valuable than other people, it's self-esteem in the mode of passion, and self-esteem in the mode of passion has another name. There's another name in the scriptures. It's called false what? False what? Pride. False pride, okay? So very, very simple framework. Very, very simple way of understanding how things work in this world. is the modes of material nature. And these modes, Prabhupada says they can be applied across the board. So we're applying it here. Now, the first question, and I want you to be honest. We know that victim mentality, the person who's just on the receiving end of other people's behavior, it will lie on the ignorance end of the spectrum. Okay? I want us all to do an honest introspection, first of all. Where are you on this spectrum? 2 questions. 1, where are you on the spectrum? Be honest. There's no shame, because like I said at the beginning, we have to know where we are and know where we're trying to get to and know why we're trying to get there. If you read the 11th canto, if you read Bhagavatam, if you read Bhagavad Gita, you'll see in many places we understand that in order to progress in spiritual life, we have to come first to the mode of goodness. From that doesn't mean you come to the mode of goodness just materially. We're meant to get to the point of practicing devotional service in the mode of goodness. Then we give up devotional service in the mode of goodness to become pure in devotional service in the mode of transcendence. You can't skip over lower modes. So we need to know where we are and where we're meant to be going. So in the mode of goodness, the self-esteem is healthy. I'm valuable, other people are valuable. Where are you on the spectrum? Where's your community? Make a note. I'll give you 30 seconds to write that down. Okay. Let us move on. Actually, I'll say one more thing. See this point in the middle, which is a mode of goodness. I'm valuable and so is everyone else. This is a point of healthy self-esteem, because in this place also, you have a healthy relationship with yourself. There's a science of understanding things, right? Without going into all the details, if you want to see if people can be in a healthy relationship for the long term, all you need to do is look and see what's their relationship like with themselves. If their relationship with themselves is healthy, then it's much easier for them to be in a good long-term relationship with other people. If their relationship with themselves is not healthy, meaning it's more in ignorance or passion, there'll be problems. In ignorance, they can become clingy, right? Because I neglect myself, everyone else has to look after me. And the slightest thing, if people don't, they don't invite me to their birthday party, it means that they hate me, right? It's not because they hate me. It's actually, I already think there's something wrong with me. I already have an inferiority complex. So the moment they may have just forgotten, but I jump to the conclusion, oh my God, they didn't invite me. That's because they don't like me. There's a conspiracy against me. No one's my friend. They're trying to bring me down. No, they just forgot to invite you to the program. That was all. Like why? Why are you reacting this way? Because the wound's in us. Or the opposite end of the spectrum, I think I'm God's gift to ISKCON. So false pride. I think I'm better than other people. Therefore, everyone has to do what I want. Everyone has to meet up to my expectations. Everyone has to live up to my standards. And everyone thinks I'm obnoxious and wants to get the hell away from me. You see? So that's what happens when there's false pride. Because I've got a superiority complex, I think I'm better than other people. And it also means I'm selfish, because Atmavam Manyate Jagat, I only see the world from my perspective. I'll give you a very interesting experience I had last night. I was coming from a program. I was getting a lift from Bhaktivedanta Manor on my route home. So I spoke to a friend of mine who was giving me the lift, and he said something very interesting, very interesting. He was talking about different natures, and he said, Bhuta Bhavana, I'm starting to understand how the different natures see things differently. He said that some devotees, he said they may think that someone who's a Brahmana they kind of get annoyed. Oh, Brahmanas, they just want to talk and they don't want to do anything practical. And I said to him, I definitely hear what you're saying, right? And I've seen that there are many people who think like that. And sometimes they have a point, in the sense that there are many people who've got a Brahmana nature, but their nature isn't activated, right? Again, I'll be honest, many people who've got that nature in Kali Yuga, they've got low self-esteem, because that nature doesn't get you the Benjamins, right? It doesn't make you loads of money. In Kali Yuga, the model that everyone aspires to is if you're a big businessman or businesswoman, you've got a big house, lots of money, everyone will worship you. So if you've got a nature which is not the promoted ideal, you may think, oh, there's something wrong with me. You know, why can't I make lots of money? Why can't I do big things? You know, like that. So unless you grew up in a place where people taught you actually how you are is fine, you don't have to try to be someone else. Unless you have that, many people, and I've seen this in our movement, many people, they try to be something that they're not in order to be accepted and in order to be appreciated. Anyway, that's the whole science. But the point I'm mentioning is that the person who said this to my friend, I actually knew this person has pride. So what's happening is that person, he thinks, yeah, I get stuff done. You know, all these other guys, they just talk. You know, they don't get stuff done like I do. So they're seeing the world from their own perspective, and with pride, it's like why? It's basically the implicit line is, why can't everyone be like me? I can manage. Why can't they manage? I can do lots of big management. Why can't they do lots of big management? And if you don't have healthy self-esteem, you'll be swayed. You'll think, oh, there's something wrong with me. I've got to be like them. No. You just have to be yourself in Krishna consciousness. Very, very important. Let's move on to understand more about this. So, low self-esteem, symptoms, self-esteem in the mode of ignorance. Others are valuable. So there's so much value. You know, people pleasers. Has anyone ever seen that in your life? People pleasers. They just try to make, you know, I want everyone to like me. I need everyone to like me. There's a term for that. It's called codependency. And it's very dangerous for spiritual life. Why? Because if you're codependent, you'll become like the wind. You'll move in whichever direction your association is in. There are many devotees, many of us in that space. When you're around materialistic people, you just want to be materialistic because you just want to fit in. And when you're around spiritual people, then, oh, okay, well, I'll be spiritual because I just want to fit in. And therefore, you're never being yourself in Krishna consciousness. And it's also exhausting. Having low self-esteem is exhausting because you're constantly trying to do whatever you think other people will give you a round of applause for. And I think many of us have been there. In that low self-esteem also, you lack integrity often. You don't say what you truly feel, but because just, what if people won't like me if I express my real opinion? Even if it's Krishna conscious, isn't it? You see, again, I'll be honest, I've been on a study of this over the years. It's been incredible. My spiritual master, I'll be honest, because we're family, one of the reasons why he sometimes will have conflicts with different devotees is because he had a very strong sense of self-esteem. When you have very strong sense of self-esteem, you can pioneer in ways which are not the norm. And you're not scared that people won't like me if I'm doing something outside the norm. You see? Because you strongly have that sense of self-acceptance. So some symptoms so we can understand. Again, if you look, you'll see, when you look at these symptoms, you can understand these are symptoms related to the mode of ignorance for low self-esteem. So self-neglect, ignorance. Over-endeavor with external appearance. I'm trying too much to look a certain way rather than being. A frustration, because whatever you do, see, it's interesting. People love those who love themselves. It's a very interesting point. People love those who love themselves. People who accept themselves, they gravitate towards and they connect with people who accept them. But people who don't really accept themselves, they tend to draw into their lives other people who also won't accept them. Very interesting. With low self-esteem, there's external sources of validation. I asked my spiritual master, what is the difference between having low self-esteem and being humble, having high self-esteem and being proud? And how does one develop high self-esteem without pride? And he explained, he said, there's two ways of playing God. He said, one way of playing God is through false pride. So self-esteem in the mode of passion. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. I'm the most powerful. I'm the most learned. I'm the most this, I'm the most that. You know, the pastime with Prabhupada. One of Prabhupada's disciples said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. Prabhupada said, you're the most nothing. because Prabhupada detected in that person's statement that they had false pride. They're still, even though I'm exceptional in some way, but it's disguised as humility because I'm exceptional in that I'm fallen. No, you're just not exceptional at all. Right? Prabhupada caught that. Self-esteem in the mode of passion. So all of these qualities, you only feel good about oneself when you've achieved an objective. That happens a lot in the modern world. And it's riddled throughout the self-help industry. You gotta people say you gotta be somebody, but just take a moment to think about that. Is that the message you want to send to yourself and to other people? That you're nothing now, and when you achieve something big externally, that's when you become valuable. People say these things, but you can see they don't think. Do you really want to tie your self-esteem to external situations which are outside of your control? It's a trap. All of these are symptoms of low self-esteem in the mode of ignorance. We'll look at the other side and then we'll go to the middle one and we'll stop there. So overly having a high opinion of oneself. I'm valuable. Self-esteem in the mode of passion. He said, so my spiritual master, there's two ways of playing God. One is the victim mentality. Because in the victim mentality, I'm self-absorbed. It's all about me. They didn't do this for me. They didn't do that for me. No one likes me. No one helps me. No one supports me. Me, 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 me. Victim mentality. Self-esteem in the mode of passion, I'm the greatest. So inability to recognize other people's contribution, because whatever I did was more important than whatever everyone else does. Pride. Overbearing and undermining others. You got to do what I say. You got to do it the way I want. You got to do it the time I want. And if it's not in the way that I like, it's not good, because I set the standard because I'm the greatest. Passion. Getting angry at others easily. Passion. Argumentative, right? I always know better. I'm never wrong. Passion. Charming and manipulative. It's also there in the mode of passion. I'm going to cheat you to get what I want. Passion. Blaming others. Passion. Self-absorbed, again, but self-absorption in the sense of feeling that I'm superior. Passion. Then self-esteem in the mode of goodness is where we try to go, is where we need to be to overcome the victim mentality. So I'm valuable and so is everyone else. So I have space for myself. I take care of myself properly. I give space for my own needs, not wants necessarily, but I take care of my own needs in a healthy and consistent way. I was going to do a post on this, and I'll still do this. And Krishna gave me an extraordinary realization. My post was going to be that we need to take care of our needs so that we can then serve. And then I got some realization in the heart, and I realized, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. Actually, if we take care of our needs, we will serve, because service is not something you do after you take care of your needs. Service is one of the most fundamental needs of the living entity. So if you're not serving, you are in some significant way neglecting a fundamental need that you have as a living entity. It's in the category of needs. So healthy self-esteem, able to set boundaries in relationship, able to self-soothe. That means that when people mistreat us, you're able to look after yourself. You're able to give that love back to yourself and remind you, it's not me. It's actually the fact that they're cruel. It's actually them. There's something wrong in their own life. Self-discipline, which relates to having boundaries. So you're disciplined. That means you have boundaries in your time, boundaries with your energy, boundaries with what you're going to accept from other people. You're able to take into account the views of other people because you consider yourself and them. And you take care of yourself properly. Let's just, okay. So I think that's a good place to end it, because we are at the hour. The key takeaway, therefore, is that if you want to become free of the victim mentality, we need to uproot the ignorance in the heart and practice more dealing with ourselves in the mode of goodness. One simple activity you can do. Ask yourself, what are my genuine needs and how can I look after them in a healthy and consistent way? And if you do that, that will immediately start to help with the healing process, where we move away from being a victim and we become more proactive, more mindful and discriminating about how we use our time and our energy in Krishna consciousness. Okay, we're at the hour, we'll stop there. If you wish, and if the organizers are happy, we can use the same link at 2 p.m. UK time, if that works. And there's more I can share, or we can take questions and answers, but we've given you the gist of what we're trying to share in the seminar so far. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, wow, thank you so much for that. That was really enlightening. I think we can all relate to that very, very much. You know, we've all had that victim mentality. So I know I've taken a lot from that. So thank you so much. Okay, so we're not going to do the questions now. You are going to rather take questions and comments a bit later.
Well, I don't even mind taking questions now, but I'm conscious. I thought that we only have an hour, so if people have time for questions, if the organizers have time, then I can do it. If not, we can do it later on. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think if everyone's okay with it, would another 10, 15 minutes be okay for questions and comments? You know, if everyone's okay with that, maybe just like put like a thumbs up or say 1 or something in the comment box. Okay, yes, so we've got 15 minutes for questions. So yes, thank you everyone for yeah, so if anyone has questions, you can raise your hand for a live question, or you can use Zoom, Facebook, anything in the chat box for your questions. So yes, let's just wait for if anyone has put their hand up or commented.
Any questions? Radha Vinodini, you have a question? Haribo?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this amazing class. For me, there was a lot of wow type of moments. And I was just wondering that in my case, you showed this image of the balance that when we value ourselves and others the same. And I thought that in my case, I think I'm all the time jumping between the two ends. So it's a bit more difficult it was a bit more difficult for me to realize on which end I am in. And probably because we have a combination of the modes of nature in us. So I was just wondering, in this kind of situation, when we combine these things, how we can make an effort to reach the balance.
Yeah, very good question. First of all, thank you for your question. There's a few things we can do. So I'm just going to check something. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to give you some pointers. I'm going to share this on the screen. So I have a slide for this. Okay. So these are some things that we can do. And these things, let's be very honest, right? Sometimes people think, oh, yeah, it's very easy to do. To do it well and to do it consistently will make a big difference. These things will have a healing effect. And this is not exhaustive. These are just some things that we can do. And again, we have to get to this point, by the way. As I said again, before we can become fully transcendental, we have to get to the point of devotional service in the mode of goodness. And these are symptomatic of a consciousness in goodness. So 1, being attentive to your needs. You see, we get more easily disturbed by other people's bad behavior when our tank is empty, isn't it? Haven't we all seen that? You know, let's say that you've not been resting properly, you've not been eating properly, you've not been spending time hearing inspiring classes, you've not been reading, you know, you've just been running around in the mode of passion, neglecting yourself, and then someone says something to you that you don't like. You are already in a lower mode. and then someone did something you didn't like, if you were in a higher mode, it wouldn't affect you so much because you would feel a sense of fullness in the heart. But because your whole situation was chaotic and you were neglectful, when they said that to you, you were already in low consciousness. So that same statement now caused you to become much more disturbed. So the first thing is being attentive to your needs. And I stress, not your wants. It's not like I've got to go and make lots of money. But no, what are the real human needs that people have, right? So are you regularly hearing classes that inspire you? Not just, I've got to hear anything. No, use your agency. You're not a victim. We're not victims, right? So, oh, the classes in the temple are boring. Okay, so what have you done about it? Oh, they don't give good classes, but you haven't heard of the internet? What's stopping you going out and finding classes that you enjoy? You see, we still have something of the child mentality. We kind of, and it's subtle and it's subconscious. This is why it's very dangerous. And this is why it's important to look at yourself. We should look at ourselves. You'll see, oftentimes, you see people have this mood of helplessness. And if you ask them, what can you do about it? It's, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. If you just ask that question, immediately they start thinking in a different way. And that's also interesting, by the way. I was toying with this, but I decided not to show this because time. There's a Prabhupada Memories. Very, very interesting. Memories of Srila Prabhupada. I think it's number 67. It's on YouTube. Kishori Mataji, a Prabhupada disciple. She's explaining Prabhupada's instructions about bringing up children. Prabhupada says that when the children are young, you should never say no to them, right? When they're very young, not forever, but when they're very young, if they want something, you should never say no to them. He says, what if they want something that they shouldn't have, you distract them by giving them something different. And he explains why. He explains why. And this is why we have this issue, by the way. This is why in the modern world, almost everyone has these issues. Prabhupada explains, he said, when the child is young and they want something and you don't say no to the child, then what you do is when that child is older, he said that child will be very confident. So I'll explain how the whole thing works. When the child is, so in Ayurveda and even modern psychology, they explain that 95% of your character is actually determined during your first 5 years. You see, people think it's mostly throughout their life. No, it's 95% of your character is determined in the first 5 years, which is directly correlated to what Prabhupada said about the first 5 years. You treat them like a prince, unconditional love. You see, so what happens for most of us in Kali Yuga, in our early years, we did not get the attention that we're meant to have received because our parents, they didn't know what to do. The spiritual culture has been lost. So in Kali Yuga, what happens to the parents? The parents are stressed out. You understand? They're stressed out. So it's difficult for them to be fully present with the children. I saw there's a disciple of Bhakti Marg Swami who was on a podcast. And he was talking about his upbringing, and it was incredible. This disciple, he was speaking about many things which sometimes a bit sensitive. He was talking about sex desire and so on. And he was being praised. What was the praise he was given? He was praised that you're so open. You're so open about where you are. You're not pretending to be at one place, even where you're someone else. And then what was interesting, and then when I heard that, I thought, Prabhupada. I understood that Prabhupada and Krishna, they were showing me the connection. So this devotee, he said that when I was young, it's my parents, they were very open door policy. Whenever people would come from all backgrounds, all walks of life, my parents would just accept them and love them and embrace them. So when I heard this, I understood, yes, what happened was the reason why this person is so comfortable being himself, so comfortable being open about where he is and not pretending to be above his level, and so comfortable in being accepting of other people is because when he was young, he was given lots of acceptance by his parents. That open door policy, it's a sign that the parents were very embracing of people with of different backgrounds in a holistic way, not just I like you as long as you're like this. They embrace people very openly. Because he got that same kind of love from them, when he's older, he's not hiding who he is, right? So when when you grow up in an environment where people accept you fully for who you are, and that means accept you good and bad, while encouraging obviously the good to come out and encouraging us to work through the bad, right? But they explain this in many systems. The idea is that you were seen, right? As a child, you were seen. So therefore, oh, I noticed you got these talents. Oh, I noticed you like this. We visited a friend of ours who has a young child, and it's so incredible. You could see the child. She's 2.5 years old, and she's confident like anything. She's strong character. I was there. She's with her father, and daddy, and she's pointing to something that she wants. Her father gives it, and she says, no, not that. That's what she says to her dad at the age of 2.5. She's clear on who she is. She's got a strong sense of identity. She knows what she wants. That comes from healthy self-esteem when they're young. So in this Memories of Prabhupada, in the earlier part of that video, different instructions are given. So what you can do now is, if you understand, okay, so when the child is young, the parents are not meant to say no to the child. It creates a samskar. It creates an impression in the child's mind that I can achieve what I strive to achieve. And that is confidence. Confidence is the subtle thought pattern that what I aim to execute, what I aim to endeavor for is attainable, you see? And it comes from the childhood where the child wanted something and it was attainable. So therefore they have that samskar of confidence. Now we can infer in Kali Yuga that doesn't happen because the parents don't know any of these things. So mum and dad will innocently say, no, you can't have that. Leave that alone. You can't have this. And then they're surprised that the adult has issues with their confidence. But they don't know. It's not their fault. They didn't know. They're treating their children in the way that they were treated by their own parents. You see? So the mistake, the patterns that they have in their own consciousness, that then plays out to their children because they didn't know any better. They didn't have Prabhupada, they didn't have the scriptures, or even if they did, they didn't study this stuff. You see? So some things you can do to overcome, being attentive to your needs. So you treat yourself as the way that you would treat someone that you respect, right? Someone you respect and love, you see them, they're not getting enough sleep. You'd say to them, look, I know you're serving, but please get proper rest, right? Prabhupada did that. If you look at Prabhupada, you can see Prabhupada, did Prabhupada have low self-esteem? I don't think so. The way Prabhupada walks, he walks like he's the general of the entire universe. Not low self-esteem at all. Be kind to yourself in word, thought, and deed. So if you make a mistake, my spiritual master writes about this in one of his spiritual warrior books, 4 or 5. He says that there's a difference between thinking that I failed in something as opposed to thinking that I am a failure. With low self-esteem, you label yourself negatively. And also you label other people negatively as well. But there's a different, but what we're meant to have when we study scripture is it's meant to give us this psychological distance. I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, and therefore I'm also not my activities. So I may have failed in something, or some project may have failed. That doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It's just another point of learning. And if I really accept our tradition, you get full points for the endeavor. The result's up to Krishna, it's not up to you. See, this is a point. These things, if you identify with success, you'll identify with failure. They're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. So if you take the credit for successes, you will also be destroyed or you'll feel down by failures. So Krishna wants us to get off the cycle by saying, don't identify with the results of your activities. Number 3, recognize and acting on your good intentions. That links to what I said. It's about the endeavor, not the result. But if you really are endeavoring properly, you're more likely to get good results anyway. And if you're detached from the results, you're more likely to do things with a better level of quality. And then last one, have positive practices which support your goals and lifestyle. Basically, if you practice a lifestyle in the mode of goodness, your self-esteem will improve and it will become more steady. If you associate with people in the mode of goodness, your self-esteem will improve and become steady. If you study and think about the scripture regularly, your self-esteem will improve and become more steady. If you introspect and you take responsibility for your triggers. Rather than thinking that it's everyone else's fault, your self-esteem will grow and improve. And all of these things will take you out of the victim mentality. Okay, so I'll stop. Hope that answers that question.
Yes, thank you very much. It's so interesting how these two modes are connected, and it's very encouraging that actually if we properly do our sadhana, it really helps us even in our material lives. So thank you very much.
And I'll add one more thing. In the mode of goodness, and again, you all heard this before, in the mode of goodness, you're discriminating. You are not expected to be friends with every single devotee in this movement, right? If you blindly just move and go towards people, even though you can see that they're not necessarily good for you, that's another sign of low self-esteem. In the mode of goodness, someone is discriminating, not negatively, but they're wise. They evaluate. Is this going to be a good connection for me? Is this going to be a good connection that's going to help me to inspire and be inspired and make progress? Or if I'm seeing this person a bit more in the mode of passion, they're always trying to tell me what to do and push me around. Okay, I don't hate them, but I realize maybe they're not the best association. So in the mode of goodness, you actually discriminate. And if you don't do that, and then you go into difficulty, that's not Krishna's fault. It's because the teaching, our scriptures say you should discriminate, but we don't do it because of sentiment. Savyasachi, Prabhu. If you unmute.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to make an announcement and say, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
For in class. That at 3 p.m. South African time, that's 2 p.m. UK time, we'll offer another hour max. So
yes.
For Prabhu to put some concepts through and handle some questions that you may have.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time. So I'll see you later on if you wish to join. By the way, Savyasachi, can you do me one favor? In the chat, can you copy that chat and send that to me as a text on WhatsApp?
Okay.
Or, yeah, thank you. I just want to have a track of some of those questions and comments. Thank you. So I'll see you later on. Thank you so much. Thank you for a wonderful opportunity. Hare Krishna.